Welcome to DAWCast, Music Entrepreneurship. I'm your host, as always, David Andrew Wiebe. Today I wanted to talk to you about the future of podcasting and what that's going to look like. I got to thinking about this the other night, and I think podcasting is gradually turning in the direction of social media. Now, I'll get to my reasons for that in a second, but you've probably heard some experts say that this is a really great time to be getting into podcasting because there's still room for more personalities to be recognized. But I think the reality is that there are certain barriers to entry. One of those barriers might be the cost of equipment. Now, granted, studio gear and podcasting gear in general have come down in price, but for those who are just looking to get started, it might look like a bit of a hefty sum. Now, if you're just looking to get started, yes, you can get yourself a USB mic for under $100. But I think anybody that wants a professional quality production is probably looking at getting themselves at least a broadcast quality microphone long term. Ultimately, I don't think it's a significant barrier to entry. I just think that some people might be stopped by that price point. As well, some people might be intimidated by studio gear. So even if they purchase all the right things, it takes time to figure out how to use it. It's sort of like learning Photoshop. You don't learn it overnight, and you're not a good Photoshopper until you've invested significant time and energy into it. Another barrier to entry might be setup. Now, if you already have a website and you have a WordPress blog, there are several plugins out there that will enable you to post podcast audio to your website. However, you still have to make sure that the feed is validating and that it's in a format that iTunes will accept. Another barrier to entry might be the workload. Like anything else, podcasting takes significant time and effort. People can't expect to invest a little bit of time and have a quality product. Certainly, there are ways of keeping things simple so that you don't have to invest a lot of energy on the back end, but usually there's still a little bit of editing involved. So when experts say that anybody could start podcasting tomorrow, I believe that is true. However, there are a few things that could stop people from doing so. One of the realities of podcasting today is that podcasts are primarily distributed through iTunes. And yes, they can be discovered in Google search and on YouTube and a few other places. Ultimately, the selection tends to be dictated to us by iTunes. And that's where I see a lot of room for competition to come in and offer a different form of distribution for podcasting. The reality is that there used to be a lot of podcast submission sites and directories, but most of them have died out. Podcasting as a medium has actually been around for a while, which would explain why certain things have died out. And that's where I see there's room for competition to move in, because people still find their podcasts primarily on iTunes, like I was saying earlier. And let's face it, it's kind of a clunky interface. Sometimes you have to search 5-6 pages deep just to get to the page where you can actually subscribe to the podcast or learn what it's about. If someone were to come up with a platform or a site that made it easier for visitors to find content and for content creators to share their podcasts, I think you could give iTunes a run for their money. For example, imagine a site that's laid out a bit like Pinterest. All the latest content appears at the top. Only imagine being able to click play directly from the main page and then be able to listen to that podcaster's content, and then being able to click subscribe, click like, being able to comment on it, being able to share it to the various social media sites. As you can imagine, a site like that would integrate very well with other social media sites. Now, I understand I've described something that's a fairly loose structure. It's a crude example. But I think if someone were to take that idea and make it a reality, that there would be some potential there. Basically, if we can minimize some of the barriers to entry that I mentioned earlier and make podcasting a more accessible form of media for everyone, not just for iTunes users, but for people everywhere that may have nothing but a web browser on their computer. So if you enjoyed this episode of DAWCast Music Entrepreneurship, we would greatly appreciate it if you leave a 5-star review in iTunes and check us out online at DAWCast.com.